of the events. You can. We're going to post this on our website, so you can see the whole entire discussion whenever you need to afterwards. Okay. So if you have to drop off, don't feel bad about it. So hi everyone, it's me, MJ, broadcasting live from my basement. Welcome to the first ever Black interior designers and students virtual panel discussion. And you know, we have this, we created this event, the IDSO, the Interior Design Students Organization, and myself in response to all the stuff that's been going on in the country with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and you know, all that stuff has just brought to light the fact that we are in a profession that is predominantly white, and you know, there's definitely issues to be discussed about that. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to bring the Black experience of interior design to light, you know, especially for the students, but you know, for the alumni and for professionals as well, to see about what we could do about evening out the racial divide that exists in the interior design industry. Personally, I just want to say, as the coordinator of the interior design program, that I'm a huge supporter of the Black Lives Matter movement. And so you know, I can't really speak for the whole entire program, but since I'm the coordinator, maybe I do. That means the interior design program at Kean is supportive of the Black Lives Matter movement as well. I'm just going to very quickly, if you're not a panelist, I'm going to ask you to put your microphones on mute. And then when the keynote speakers are speaking, it will only be the keynote speakers using their microphones. Otherwise, you know, there's going to be a lot of people on this event. We don't want, you know, 80 people talking at the same time over each other. We just had our pre-meeting only had 12 people, and we were already all talking over each other at that point too. So we gotta try to. This is my first time doing something of this magnitude to begin with. So we'll see how it goes. Otherwise, if you do want to chime in, I'm going to be monitoring the chat. So if you want to type something in the chat to get a question in or a comment in, you can put it over there, and I'll try to figure out a way to get your voice heard as well. But for right now, it's really going to be about the panelists. Okay, and our distinguished list of panelists, I just want to go through that. So I'm going to share my screen for a little bit and show you the bios of everybody that was asked to be a panelist. Okay, and so our first keynote speaker is Kia Weatherspoon, and she is a designer working out of the Washington, D.C. area. I will share this document as well, so you know, I'm not going to read off everybody's bios. They're very long, but we got some really distinguished professionals to join us here today, and we're really, really thankful for that. Our second keynote speaker is Everett Brown, who works out of Manhattan. Then we have Professor Brandon Balcom, who teaches CAD 2 and was an alumni from 2016 in the interior design program. Tammy Bolden, who is also an alumni and has her own firm as well. Not sure what year you graduated, Tammy.
2010.
2010. Norris Cannon is a good friend of mine and a professor from my days at Berkeley College. Rose Humphrey is an alumna from 2019 who has her own business as well. Sky Inch, another graduate from 2019, currently working in a residential firm in Homedale. And Sherry Kirkland, who was one of my original students back from Berkeley College days. who has her own company called the Berry Box. And that's it. So 8 distinguished panelists. And I am also very happy to introduce you to your MC for the night, who is Jeremy Innocent. He is a junior, rising junior in the interior design program, and I'm going to let him have the first say. Here you go, Jeremy.
Alrighty, guys. Hello. Welcome, everyone. I just want to thank you all for being here. This means the world to me in IDSO. And I just wanted to say that as a young Black interior designer, you don't see much of yourself in any form of media. And I feel like the only architects and artists and designers that we do learn about are white. And you really can't see yourself when you're being taught only specifics. And growing up as a Black boy, the first time I ever saw a Black male interior designer was someone that I had to search for on Google. And it would be lovely to see someone like on magazines and just have Black people be a face to be shown, so all interior designers and young interior designers can see what they can be and see how successful they are. I just want to thank everyone again, and I'm going to lead this off to Kean Weatherspoon, so you can go ahead and start.
Oh, good evening, beautiful people. Good evening. I'm going to be timing myself. So this is going to be really lively and really fast. I got 10 minutes. So my name is Kean Weatherspoon, and I am a design equity advocate. And what that means is my practice determined by design. We advocate for design equity and affordable housing.
Anytime, anywhere, my
That's Norris. Norris eating on my time. I told you
Norris, you gotta mute.
What? Look, I'm not technically challenged. Look, it took me a while to get onto this. Wasn't my fault. So ha. Okay, so I'm sorry. Go on. Yeah, I'm sorry.
But we need you to mute your phone.
Look, like I said, this is my 3rd laptop. I'm trying. I'm here.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So
didn't give up.
All right. A big part of what I do is educate people on what interior design is, right? All my projects are predominantly in low income and communities of color. And I think that's important for a couple of reasons. The very first project I did was for domestic violence survivors. It was a nonprofit project for 12 women of color and 32 children. So I approached them and like, I'm going to provide interior design services for you. And they looked at me like, 1, we don't need this. 2, this isn't for us. And this isn't relevant to our lives. So in going through that process with these women, it went from we don't need this to, oh my God, someone would do this for us. Oh my God, I thought I could only see this on TV. Miss Kean, is this a career field that I could do one day? And I think a lot of times people think about interior design and they think about the big pretty reveal. So when we finished the project, yes, the room was pretty, but the woman said to me, Miss Kean, when I walked into this room, I realized change was possible for me. And that's when I knew right then, the people who need access to well-designed spaces the most, they don't know they don't have it, they don't know they need it, and they don't have an advocate. And I built my entire business around providing what's seen as a luxury service or trade or craft to low-income communities, predominantly people of color. And why is that important, right? I think interior design isn't a luxury for a few, it's the standard for all. I think there is a lack of diversity in our industry because a lot of boys and girls of color are not growing up in aspiring spaces. If you look at the demographics of the makeup of affordable and low income housing, it's predominantly people of color. So I started looking at the landscape and like, well, who's designing affordable housing? Who's doing these projects? And, you know, affordable housing is just a fancy way to say ghetto, the hood, right? It's just, or workforce housing, right? low income. It's all the same thing. But I'm looking around and I'm looking for firms who are doing this work. And there's no one saying that the living conditions in low income communities is less than their market rate counterparts. And it's kind of like, who's going to provide that service? So one of the things I started to do early on, a business 101, right? You got to really situational awareness. You have to know who's going to buy into you. So here I am, a young designer, Black, very outspoken. And I said to myself, am I going to go and try to get business from the same 10 white developers here in the DC area? I said, no. Who's doing the work in my community? And I was very, very, very strategic. And I started looking for Black and minority developers who were doing affordable housing. And here it comes. I'm like, oh, I'm going to bring interior design. I'm going to elevate your interiors. And they're like, first of all, sis, this demographic doesn't need this service. And I couldn't wrap my mind around why everyone was assuming that poor people didn't need access to well-designed spaces the most. So as a business owner, I had to get off my soapbox, right? And literally learn how to speak my clients' language, my developer clients, which was about dollars, right? If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense in the world of design, development, and life. So now I'm showing my developers I can do more and not spend more money. But this is how I get them to do what I want, right? Design 101, a fucking concept, right? A lot of my projects are in low income communities, historic Anacostia, East Brookland in Richmond, Virginia, where these were these rich cultural communities of color. So I'm developing my design concepts from the community, the fabric of those communities, and I'm weaving them into design elements. And that's how I'm selling my clients, right? So I'm taking the history, the culture of these communities and telling them through the design, interior space, right? Because this is what I don't want to happen. I don't want the stories and histories of these communities like Berry Farm in historic Anacostia, which is one of the largest public housing redevelopments happening in the district right now, that has a strong Black history and culture. I don't want that to be erased when the area gentrifies, right? That's just what's happening in a lot of these historic communities. So I'm using design to tell that story and create that vernacular. And I'm telling the Black agenda, the Black story, spending less money, and it's still looking dope. And I'm not gonna pull up any pictures, right? You can go to my website, determinedbydesign.com. A lot of our project work is there. But that's a big part of what I do. And I think the diversity piece is, if you don't grow up in inspiring spaces, how do you know that interior design is an option for you? How do you know that architecture is an option for you? So for me, this is why it's important that I stay in this market segment. Again, no one else was tending to it. And I'm successful. Interior Design Magazine, IIDA, ASID, right? All this recognition, it's happening right now because everybody's looking for a Black designer to highlight. But I've been at this for 8 long years doing the work. I'm working on 3 of the largest public housing redevelopments in 3 major metropolitan areas, in a Black-led firm, right? A diverse team, in communities of color. And people say, oh, well, what about, white people? If I was in middle America and it was affordable housing and it was predominantly white people, my narrative would still be the same. Everyone deserves access to well-designed spaces, period. But I think, unfortunately, it's predominantly communities of color that have been disenfranchised and don't get elevated interiors. And what does that mean, elevated interiors? A lot of times, I'll have to say, not that the chair is ugly, not that they don't like it, not that it's not durable. It's just like, oh, it's too much for this demographic, right? And I have to educate them, or it's, we can't have soft seating in the lobby. These people will tear it up. Well, the 3 drunk white girls who came home from the Hill, they could tear it up too, right? So it's really shifting that language. And a lot of time I'm checking people's, I don't want to say implicit bias, but their bias to low income people. The same thing goes with drapery, right? Softer fabrics, vinyl everywhere. We did a project, senior living in Baltimore, and the client was like, oh, we need to do all vinyl. No, we need to soften these spaces. Softness is not a dirty word. In senior living, in the main common area, we have a cream sofa. It's been cream for 3 years now, right? Because it's not necessarily about, do I need to use vinyl or do I need to use a softer texture, but do I have to advocate for better for those people in that community? And that's my job as an interior designer, right? I think people forget interior design is the greatest form of empathy in practice, but you just got to see everyone and look at every space that you approach. Like, would my mother live in that space? Would I want that for my grandmother or my brother, right? And this is the thing. I think what happens is when you have firms, architecture and interiors, where the architecture firm that has 1 or 2 little white girls who went to a program and now they think they have an interiors department and they're doing affordable housing, are you going to empower that little girl to speak and to say, no, architect, that shit, do better, right? I think it's this narrative of it is our job to uplift people through the interiors environment. And I need everyone to be able to do that, Black, white, or any color in between, because until all spaces are inspired, we won't see this shift in the pipeline of the industry. I meet so many young, how I'm doing all the time, am I good? I think I'm good, right? Yeah. Okay. I think all the time people ask me, you know, I never thought I would be here, but I never thought I couldn't be here, right? When I was growing up, or in design school, I think we were having this conversation. Tammy was saying, like, we didn't know of any designers of color. I didn't, right? So I strive to be the designer of color that I never saw, right? I started my business because I was working for white women. And it was just like, man, I was looking for leaders who were starved like me, especially in this commercial and hospitality space. And I don't get into which hierarchy, which division is better, right? Design is design. But for me, it was really about, I want to see more diverse designs and creative voices. But it has to start with your origin story. Where did you grow up? Did that space inspire you? We were talking on the pre-call about taking these career assessments. What happens if your school never had that career assessment? How do you get to interiors, right? I had a student recently tell me they got a whole other degree in economics and accounting because their parents said, oh, I wouldn't pay for an interiors degree. Fast forward 4 years, now she's an interior designer working for Mercedes. And it's kind of like, well, wait a second. This is a viable career option to be successful in as a person of color. Whether you do luxury, affordable, anything in between, I think it's really saying it's our cultural experiences, that empathy lens, and the power of the Black culture that makes us invaluable in this space. And I always lead with the apparent. It's apparent I'm Black, right? But I never dial it down. I own it. And that's how I've been able to be successful. It translates that I'm the best version of myself most days. In this pandemic, some days we have some bad days. But I think that's the short version. That was a lot of information that I wanted to get out. And I think I did it in under 10 minutes. Damn.
All right, thank you so much, Kia. I would love to hear you talk about the setbacks that you had in the 8 years and how did you keep motivated?
So I think the main thing, right, is money, right? Finances, right? No one in my family had ever been a business owner before. And I'm sorry, that professional practice class don't teach you how to run a business or to manage people. So for me, it was finding resources to help me operate the business, both financial, but then also I really had to check in on my faith, right? My mission was so laser focused. I had to realize early, don't chase the check. If I'm chasing the check, I could go work for someone else. But it was really about what's the mission. And there were countless times where like my rent was coming due or some bill was due and I didn't have any cash flow coming in. And then just like that, I wouldn't focus on, oh, I need to check. It was just do the work, focused on the mission, put one foot in front of the other. And just like that, something would unfold. So that was hurdle number one. Number two is I did not have any mentors, right? I would reach out to people relentlessly, not asking for a job, asking to hear their story, to learn, and it would be crickets. And I'm pretty persistent, and it will still be crickets. And then I just kind of was like, you know what? Fuck it, be your own hero. So I became my own hero and my own mentor. And now I mentor at excess. The third thing is managing people. No one tells you managing people is unpleasant. It is, right? It's like having kids that you were like, I wasn't ready for that yet. But that's the third thing. But the easiest thing has been staying laser focused on the mission. My market segment is my lane. That has probably been the most successful thing that I've ever done. And then also being unapologetically myself. Business 101, they have to like you to want to do business with you. So if I'm trying to button it up, it's not going to work. You can't show up and do your job if you're too busy trying to be someone else or conform or use the King's English or the 25-cent words. Keep it simple, exude who you are at all times.
Thank you so much. And how do you think you can lead the interior design field to be more compassionate like you are?
Doing exactly what I'm doing right now, doing things like this, mentoring, using my voice for good, and being so candid. I think we are constantly trying to clean things up that we ain't saying shit, right? I think encouraging more students to use their voice and really educating on what design equity is, what that means, and the implications of that. If you go to Determined by Design's Instagram, there's a video on why design equity matters. And it talks about this eyes on the door notion when you walk into low income and affordable housing. And we'll be doing more videos like that because I think it's in ways that we don't even realize that the design vernacular, from space planning to finishes and colors, really affect design outcomes in communities where they need better, and bring that empathy lens back to design. We design for people, period.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do any panelists have anything else to say?
Thanks, Boo.
Yeah, you killed it. You definitely are a teacher, okay? But I just want to sum up what you said, and you say it well, which is be comfortable in your own skin and don't be afraid to express yourself. Kia is a living example of someone who's created a niche and is killing it. And this is, whether it's interior design, investment banking, accounting, you're going to do exactly what she just said. It's amazing. I love what you said. Thank you for sharing.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Kia, can I ask you a question? Can you give us an example of the type of concept that you've used in a project? You said that your projects are, typically in low housing, low income, but you use a concept.
So we'll pick on Berry Farm, right? It's technically located in the Hillsdale area of Berry Farm. It used to be a fishing town. Berry Farm was named after the Yard, the founder of Howard University. So again, the Yard is a very historic, prominent area here in DC. And Hillsdale has these kind of hills and valleys. So our concept was, wait, stick with me, stay with me. I'm gonna get it. My age is showing.
We are
What was the inspiration?
Elevating the senses of ascension. So everything was about movements and elements that move your eye up and move you through the space, right? So it's those types of concepts that's how I sell the client. I don't think this is what's trending. This is the story. This is the why. I have this curved ceiling element because it's about uplifting the person, right? And this idea of ascension, this sensory experience.
Yeah.
So we did this interactive wall in the lobby where all the names of historic figures throughout the Berry Farm and Hillsdale community, the writing is literally on the wall. So as you move through the space and more people move, their names illuminate. So what are we trying to do? Maintain the history and the culture, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, there, east of the river, it is gentrifying, right? It just is what it is. But no matter who's there, that story of that community is there. And it's that concept is how I sell them every time.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Love you, girl. Love it.
Bam.
Thank you so much.
Really a keynote what she just said, being able to reference your work. Right? She's speaking in her own voice.
Yeah.
This is, you are preaching tonight.
I love
like, I stand over and go, oh my God.
Alrighty, guys. Now, Everett Brown, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Oh, that was quick. You mean I got to go after Kia? That's not fair. Well, that's why I had to do something different, Kia. So I'm going to lead in with a typical interior design presentation, which is show you a little bit of my work. But I love being on the heels of Kia because where I think we elevate each other is we do something very different, but we approach it in the same way. So even though I cater to a very upscale clientele who's predominantly white, and if I describe her, she has multiple kids, meaning she has 2-3 kids. Her kids are in private school. Her family takes multiple vacations a year. She probably owns 2 or more homes. The most common car driven by my client is a Tesla. Do I need to say any more? I haven't told you anything about their income, but I think you get the picture, right? Now, when I approach design, I don't think design is about spending a lot of money, right? This is where I piggyback on what Kia said. For me, design is about creativity. So a lot of times we get it twisted that it's about luxury. It's not about luxury. It's about how creative I can be and how I can get you the best return on your investment. That's what separates me from my clientele or my colleagues, right? So the other niche that I've carved out is I cater to couples. So I like divergent perspectives to elevate the process. So he's modern, she's classic, or she wants to spend money and she don't, right? That is where I come in. My wife and I come in and we offer expert solutions for couples. But it also works when I worked for the US Open. I had an older membership and a younger membership, divergent perspectives. And we took those, integrated them to come out with the best solution. But like Kia, I reference my work, right? So no matter what it is, whether I have a big budget or no budget, I have clients in the Bronx and I have clients in Scarsdale. I got a client in Dallas. No matter what that is, I have to be able to reference whatever it is my client wants. So we talk about style, right? People always want to know what my style is. My style is what I call modern classic with a global perspective. Probably means nothing to anybody, but means a lot to me. There are a lot of visuals I get and cues I get, but it took me many years to get that voice. So when I look at style as the equivalent of a language. I happen to be multilingual, meaning I work in mediums of both classic and modern. But it's okay if you only speak one language, right? You only work in modern or you work in classic, as long as you understand what language you speak in, right? And so when you translate that, what I do is I have to make my clients understand that I understand what their language is, right? So if they're speaking modern, I speak modern. If they're speaking classic, I speak classic. Where I'm great is where I have both, right? I'm able to integrate those. So what I'm going to do is, I don't want to bore you with the talk. I'm going to show you a little bit of my work. So I'm going to try to take over the screen here. See how that works. It says I can't share the screen. Sorry, an error has occurred. Do I need to be handed presentation rights?
No, you should be able to get on there on your own.
It's not allowing me, so it looks like I won't be able to do that unless there's another way we get in. All right. Anyway, you can go to my website, everettbrown.com, to see my work. I was going to do an overview. Currently, I am working on a project in Purchase, New York. It's a white couple. We could have an endless budget, but I would say we have a budget. She doesn't like to spend a lot of money. He is okay as long as he likes it. I have completed projects from Covely Country Club. I mentioned the US Open. I worked with Katrina Adams, president of the US Open, for 4 years, where we renovated the President's Suite, which is the biggest box in the US Open Stadium. I have worked on projects from Los Angeles to Chicago to DC, and now currently working in Dallas. But one of the most important things I think about our business is really understanding what your voice is, being comfortable with who you are, what your voice is, and then getting out there and driving towards who that client is. And speak only that language, right? Don't try to speak everybody's language. Speak your language and your people will come. But you really want to distinguish yourself. And I think that's what Kean does well. Like, I love listening to her and getting excited. And she, you know, she got a passion, so you get it, right? And mine is the same as I go after couples and divergent perspectives. And what we have in common is there aren't a lot of people out there in design, interior design, talking what we're talking. Generally, as an interior designer, I would come on and go, ooh, look at me. Look at how beautiful my projects are, right? I focus on, as I said when I opened up, return on investment, mitigating risk. What I do is solve problems. Most of my colleagues are not approaching the business that way. So that's my entrepreneurial hat, right? But I come out of corporate America also, where I do understand how to run a business. I do teach profit and loss, markups, margins, EBITDA. These are things that will help you in interior design, investment banking, accounting, or whatever. So Kean made this point earlier. Managing people is a really ugly thing. People talk about interior design. I'm creative. I want to go into interior design. My first question is, do you like people? Do you like pleasing people? Because that's what my job is. And the difference is, as a designer, I'm coming up with answers. It's often mistaken with art. And we talked about this on one of our pre-calls. As an artist, I might ask a lot of questions and explore a lot of things that I'm interested in. But as a designer, I have to answer and come up with solutions. That's very different, not to be confused with where people think our industry really is.
So Everett, I have a question for you. How did you, as a Black man, see yourself coming into this field? Like, how did you know that you wanted to be in this field?
So I'm driven by color. I like textures. I love art. But I'm really excited about space and pleasing people. So there's not a room I don't walk in and make an observation and try to make it better. And as Kean said, and I said, it's not about spending money. It's about how do I get to that solution? So I use my resources to come up with less expensive solutions for clients, whether they have money or not. You know, it's just the industry has made this a luxurious industry. Really what design should be about is how do I achieve the most functional, most beautiful environment by spending the least amount of money. That's when you're badass as an interior designer. Anybody can go out and spend a lot of money and come back with a whole bunch of beautiful things. Anybody can design an empty room. I like taking people's treasures and old things and integrating those into their new space. That's when you get creative.
All right, my next question is, who inspired you to like design the way that you do?
I would say my mother's probably my greatest inspiration. She is an artist, fashion designer, and entrepreneur. She raised me. My father was killed in the Vietnam War when I was going on 2. So my mother was very deliberate about making sure I got an education and that I would not be creative, although she raised me in a totally creative environment. So when it comes to art, I'm free flowing and can hang with the best of them. And that's where I hang, right? I love art. I'm inspired by creativity and imagination. And so I have to give my first inspiration to my mother.
Thank you so much. And if any other panelists want to answer who inspired them, you can go ahead.
I think I'll say that I inspired myself. Like listening to these stories, it's reminding me of how I got started with design, not knowing what interior design was. You guys are probably, some of you know Bradley's, right? Everybody had that bookshelf growing up. It had a little cabinet at the bottom. Growing up, everybody's room had that, in my house at least. I used to literally get on the floor and drag this thing and move my bed and rearrange my room every other week. And my father would come home and say, "What boy did you have in here helping you move this stuff?" And I was like, there's no boy involved. Like, I'm moving it. But I had no idea what interior design was, nor did my family to push me in a direction to kind of go that route. So yeah. I, of course, went the route of fashion because I loved fashion as well. But I feel like those two things are both like intertwined. So I think I'm actually kind of proud of myself today. I realized that I inspired myself.
See, Sherry, I love that. I think mine is the polar opposite. And I like how you can have polar opposites and still come to the same place. I think my inspiration for design at the earliest onset was my brother, who was incarcerated for 15 years. And I would have to go visit him in these prison facilities. And year after year, I constantly started thinking like, this is so undignified. It was undignified for me as a visitor. Then I started looking around at the children who were coming to visit their fathers, the spouses, and I started looking at the workers. And I started thinking like, what is the punishment here, right? No person should be or dwelling or working in a space that is indignified. And fast forward, when I'm now in interior design, my undergraduate degree was a male prison facility, right? Now I'm working on how do I transition to changing the way the interiors of prisons are designed. Again, I'm like a beat a dead horse. Who were predominantly in prison facility? Black and brown people. How do we change the narrative of those spaces? We're still doing and saying the same thing, right? Everett is saying like, you have to listen, you have to hear people, you have to learn from your experiences and your stories, right? And let that motivate you. But we're all about interior design and people at the end of the day and creating solutions for people.
Yeah, I say for me, people need to understand that interior design is not just about making spaces pretty, you know? Like Everett said, anybody can do that. Interior design is more in line with project management. You've got to have a budget. You've got to stick within your budget. You've got to have a time frame. You know, you've got to stick within that time frame. And making the space user friendly. You know, you have to make sure that it is appropriately set up for the end user. So that's more of what interior design is than picking colors and fabrics and that kind of thing. Because you got to know how to look at a space and be able to, you know how it's used for the most, for the best use.
At least for me, I'm sorry, Jeremy.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Real quick, my bad. But at least for me, how I got into interior design and just the fascination of architecture itself was I always was interested in how not only how we shape the interiors, but how the interior space shapes us as people. Because you would just think about when you go into your favorite store or whatever it is, or even somebody's house. You may go in somebody's house and be like, ugh. But that shapes you. It's like, okay, it's not conducive to what I am doing or how this function may be. But you start to think and process, how can you make it better? Especially as we're designers, how can we make it better? And just to go to a little example, I was at Irvington High School my freshman year of high school before I transferred to a better school. But in one of our, I think it was the gym class where we have to do phys ed, not phys ed, but I forget what the class really was now. But the room was divided, and since it's in the ghetto, as basically with lower income families and students and whatever like that. As I was sitting in the class, the room was divided with, on the other side of the wall, and at top it was like a little clear space, so things could be like, you can hear the transmission of sound. So on the other side of the wall, there was a parenthood class or something like that for students that had babies at a young age. So I was like, this is not really conducive to education and everything. Like, how you have on one side, I'm learning like, phys ed and everything like that. Then on the other side, you have people having classes for like early childhood and everything like that. I was like, this is not right. Something has to be better. And as a designer, even then I was thinking something has to be better. So ever since then, or ever around that time, like I just wanted to get into something that in those situations, how can you improve this? Or how can you make things like that even like better just for my people? Because I went to that high school, even though I went there for 1 year, I still went there. And if I had that thought, then other people had the same thought as well.
Yeah, I find when I go into restaurants, I'm always critiquing the space, how it could have been laid out differently, the colors, like, I guess just as a hazard of the industry, I'm sure others can say the same.
So.
All right, thank you guys so much. I want to get into the questions that people have asked. So thank you, Kia and Everett, for being our keynote speakers. And I really want to get perspective with Rose and Sky as young interior designers. Have you ever felt othered in a design event or the design field in general, being a Black person?
All day long. That's all day long. And there are very few rooms I walk into in the industry where there are other people of color. It's amazing when you go to a badge, Black Artists and Designers Guild event, or what's the other one? BID, Black Interior Designers. It's like heaven. It's joy to be able to walk in a room and meet the eyes of people who look and feel and see the same things I do. But in general, you're gonna feel othered, right? It is just the nature of the beast. There's so few of us in the industry that it's not often you're gonna find yourself in a space where you're not the only. And unfortunately, in a lot of circumstances, because people are not aware of microaggressions or macroaggressions, you're experiencing things that they don't even know they're subjecting you to.
I jumped, my internet went out. I have played into being the only, right? You know what I mean? It makes me more memorable, right? Because 9 times out of 10, I'm walking into the room, right? Probably the only Black person. I'm perceived as the youngest person, and then I walk in with my big natural hair, right? So these are all things that be like, who's a Black girl with the big hair, right?
Yeah.
And then I open my mouth, and all that other stuff about being the only don't matter. because I'm so focused on the mission and what I'm saying, I'm taking away the thing that might make me a differentiator. And now my mission makes me the asset. And a lot of times these microaggressions, it's not unintentional, it's intentional. And that's fine too. That's why I just continue to show up. And I didn't catch the question, but I'm sorry, so I apologize. But the microaggressions are not unintentional, they're intentional. At this point in the game, people know what they're doing. I just have to elevate my voice more and my level of integrity and be focused on whatever your said mission or goal or outcome is of the meeting. Is that fair? Not even knowing what the question was.
And I think
so Sky, I saw that you may have something to say. Sky?
I do. So I think Kia and Everett both hit like really good points. It's really just, it's not that, you know, being a Black designer, you're going to feel othered. Being a Black American, you're going to feel othered. And even more so in this industry, you're going to feel it because there aren't as many of us, you know, really at these big conventions and everything. We're there, don't get me wrong. But being a young student, first of all, going to NeoCon as a sophomore and in college, that is so overwhelming, you know? And then to be one of the few, because I had Rose with me. So I had a girl with me. I had my girl, you know, there with me to experience this with me. But going in there, and if I didn't have Rose, that's incredibly overwhelming and kind of, I don't know if the word is to be intimidating, but I guess it kind of is a little bit intimidating because you go in there and you're like, damn, can I really do this? And you got to remember, like, there are so many times I had to tell myself, like, hell yeah, I can do this. Like, it's not, this market is for me. This job is for me. I can do this. And if there's nobody out there like me, well, I'm going to be the one to do it. And obviously there are people out there like me, but if I can't see them, I'm going to make that move for myself.
All right. And so, Sky, how do you not compromise yourself being in a room that's not as diverse?
I mean, I think it's hard. It's easier said than done. But I grew up with a mama who always taught me, like, be you. Everyone who is whoever's meant to be with you is going to be with you, and never compromise who you are as a person. So I've kind of taken that lesson from my childhood into everywhere that I go. I'm me, and you're either going to like me or not like me. But I know what I can do. I'm looking to grow. I'm looking to learn, and as long as I continue to do that, my voice will be heard eventually.
Right.
And I will demand the space.
It's such a great question.
Rose, do you have anything to say about that?
Wait, I'm sorry. I was going to say inherently built in our industry, right, is this quest to be different. So why is it that when we walk in a white room, all of a sudden we don't want to be different, right? That's when I'm going to shine, right? I spend all my time trying to carve out my difference. So when I walk in a room where I am different, now is my chance to embrace it, right? That's where I feel most comfortable. So even though you're othered when you walk in the spaces, I was not suggesting that I felt uncomfortable. Yes, I have experienced being othered. Most of the time I do. And I love drop kicking those who try to other me, right? That's, the greatest joy. But I also have spent a lifetime building my career, and that career is built on being different. So you got to embrace that. That's like what we talked about earlier about finding your own language and being comfortable speaking it.
And to go off that first question that you mentioned, like on the positive note, I actually experienced my first ever event when I actually was introduced to all Black interior designers. And when I'd seen that, it just changed my whole perspective. It was like very eye-opening because I didn't know it was out there. But when I seen that, I felt like, oh, I really have a community that's behind me. So I felt very part of the community.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I've always done this since day one, right? You go to an event and there's probably going to be one other person of color. I don't care where it is. I go and introduce myself. I was at my first trade show in HD Expo in Vegas. I have never been to Vegas, and I'm in the bathroom, in the ladies' room, and I see this Black girl. She has this big hair, and she had on a conference name badge. And I was like, "Excuse me, I haven't seen any other Black person. I just want to introduce myself." And to this day, she and I are friends. She happened to live in DC. But the next step and layer to that, Sky, and I think someone wrote in the chat that, Sky, you were always really great towards younger students. You should always have a mentee or two or three. In older generations, there could only be one. Right? Now, I think that kept us stagnant, but you should always have 2, 3, 4 mentees guiding them. I have mentees who sat in every position in ASID that I've ever sat in, because I say, here she go, and then here she go, right? And it's just time and sponsorship. A lot of times I couldn't afford to go to events, and I would just show up, right? And act like I was supposed to be there and nobody was saying anything. But now if my mentee says to me, I want to go, you got the money, you good? Sponsorship is key. And I think, hey, bring a friend. Bring a friend. BYOB, bring your own Black person. And this is my white counterpart. They said, Kia, what can I do? Did you invite a person of color to this meeting? Did you invite a person of color to this private dinner that the CEOs are having? Did you invite a person of color to be on your panel? You want to know what you can do? Bring one, bring two. Right? That's what they can do. That's it. It sounds funny, but I think we all heard. Sometimes we aren't all exposed to the same opportunities. So bring someone who doesn't look like you to the opportunity. Don't assume that they got that invitation to the party.
That's the key, is presenting the opportunities, because you know, we are not the majority. And when I say we, I mean we as designers of color. We've got to be in the room. We've got to have the opportunity to show that we are just as talented as anybody in any part of this profession, any niche. But we've got to have the opportunity to be able to shine. You know, you've got to be invited to the room.
Yeah. And speaking about being like invited to the room, as a business owner, there's a lot of you in here. Do you think that was a way to create a safe space for yourself and other people of color designers?
If I can answer that, when I started, design is a second career for me. I was in PR and sales and marketing for a while, and I had this passion for design, and so I decided to go back to school with my lovely husband's support. And so I was one of the older students in class, and you know, I was there with all these younger, brilliant, you know, young women, and you know, I felt intimidated by them. You know, I had more experience in the work world and more experience in life experience, but I didn't feel that I could hold up to their youth, you know. And so when I got out of school, I said, you know what? I'm just going to do this myself. I'm going to take a leap of faith, because I'm going to be the oldest person in the room. I'm probably not going to be hired because others have, you know, you can pay them less, because I had a salary expectation. You know, so I had all these things that I thought was going to be a hindrance for me moving forward in the industry. So I said, you know what? I'm smart. I can do this myself. And so that's what I did. I just presented. I built the opportunity for myself, because I wasn't going to wait for somebody else to hire me, you know, because they would probably have hired someone a lot younger, truth be told, because they could have gotten them for a lot less money. But I went out and I decided to start my own firm, because I just needed to have the opportunity for myself, or make the opportunity for myself.
Thank you so much. Any other business owners want to speak on that?
For me, I was working for a firm and I was burning out really early in my career. I think we all know, we've all done overnighters. In college is cute, as an adult it's not. And there was no gratitude from my employer, and I was like, okay. And then I would want to do professional development, and it would be like, not on our dime. And I was like, okay. and I was becoming disenchanted with my craft. And you don't pay all this money for a degree to not love what you're doing. And for me, one day my boss was like, "Kia, you just don't seem like you're present." And I was like, you know what? She's right. Why am I building other people's dream when I can build my own? And then I literally just gave my 2 weeks notice. And I didn't know what my next move was, but people always say, how do you know? Because it feels like there is no other option, right? There was only this option to start my business. It wasn't, I had X amount of this. I didn't have 6 months of my salary saved up because I would still be working with somebody. But it was really a feeling, and it was probably one of the trusting your gut. And that's to be a business owner. You got to trust your gut at all times.
Yeah, Key, I think you articulated that perfectly for me. I think it was just, I didn't feel like I had another opportunity. I didn't have any other, other space that I could thrive, and I'm too much of a type A personality to, sit and wait for things to happen. So I said, you know what, I just got to do this myself. And it was hard as hell. Let me tell you, I didn't see any successes. I've been doing this since 2010, and I would say the last 2-3 years, I've been seeing success. So it takes grind. It takes a long time, and success is different for everyone because there are this term designer celebrities. There are designer celebrities out there. In every magazine, you see them everywhere. But for me, it's about what's in my bank account. Okay, so so success is different for everybody.
I've never heard that word before, designer of whatever, and I never want to hear it again after
designer celebrity.
All right, thank you so much. If anyone in the comments, you want to write down a question for our panelists, go ahead, feel free.
I've always wanted to start a reality show. I mean, the drama that happens in our program on a day-to-day basis is, you could have many, many seasons of following the Kean interior design program if you really wanted to.
Who is Rose? She's like super active in the chat. Not to put you on the spot, Rose. Hey.
She's a dean.
Oh,
She's the associate dean of the program.
Oh, gotcha.
Of the Michael Graves College.
Oh, okay.
She's a big wig. I would use another term, but
Jeremy, did you have any other questions that you wanted us while the chat does this thing?
I've been asking you guys my questions. Let me find one if I can. Oh, my friend gave me one question. It says, have you ever experienced or witnessed performative activism? So someone who is doing the most, but actually not ready to back it up. Have you ever experienced that?
Wait, can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
Have you ever experienced performative activism? Can you hear me now?
Performative activism?
Yeah, so someone who's probably on your side, but not really ready to back you up. Have you ever experienced someone like that?
I guess back in my day, we would call him a backstabber. Is that I need layman's terms.
I would say no, right? Because I have low tolerance and no time for BS, right? So I'm gonna call again because I'm constantly focused on the mission. So either you're about design equity or you're not. Anything in between, I don't have any cut cards for you, right? And I'm gonna be professional at all times, right? And articulate and cut through all the BS. So I don't have time for anything performative because there are still shitty design outcomes happening. So I don't attract that type of energy into my sphere. And if I do, I'll pull that person aside privately, right? I'm not trying to call anyone out and just say, hey, let's get to the root of the issue, which where a lot of this performative activism comes from. Yeah.
So there's a question that says, what is the best advice you can give to upcoming interior design students? I would love to hear from Sky or Rose as recent graduates.
Oh, Rose, you want this one? Do you want to play this one or you want me? I think the best advice I can give to an upcoming interior design student would just be to play around while you can and research more than what you're told to research, if that makes sense, because school is your time to be as creative as you can possibly be and really train that muscle to really, if you expand it in school, you'll expand it even more so, I feel like, outside of school. And your professors can only tell you to research but so much, but find what you're interested in and dive even deeper into that. Explore.
Yeah, piggyback off of that, I would say, yeah, the main thing is to learn you, like learn your style and what like you want to know. I'm like sorry, I apologize. No, but it's more about learning you and getting to know your style. I would say that's the best thing, because coming out of college, I kind of still was like, damn, I don't really know exactly my style, but I took some time and kind of honed it and realized what my unique style is, because my design should represent me.
I think also a good thing I can say is to connect with the other students. I know a lot of times people see art as really like a competition, and like there's friendly competition, but you really should only be competing, whatever, but you'll only do that by communicating with the other students and getting those other perspectives and learning from them as well. You're all in this together, so don't try to be too competitive with each other.
Can I answer that question, Jeremy? I know I'm not a recent graduate.
Go ahead.
So this is what I would tell students, especially in this time of COVID: build relationships, right? Stop constantly asking for the job and the internship. You're so busy trying to get a thing from a person and/or a firm. You haven't taken pause to do what Sky and Rose both just said and do your research. Is that a firm you want to be at? Are they doing projects you want to do? Are they diverse? What does their portfolio look like? What does their social media look like? And reach out to people to say, hey, Everett, I want to learn your story. Don't be like, Everett, I want a job. Everett, I want a job. Hey, Everett, how did you get here? I would love to just have coffee with you, right? Build the relationship slowly, and the opportunities will unfold themselves. Oh, I'm sending my resume out to a bunch of people. Take a pause. Send a handwritten note and say, hey, I saw you were on this panel. I was really inspired. That, again, we talked about empathy, human, people connection. Stop trying to make these transactional, superficial, get the job, get the job. I have a student loan payment coming due. I got you. It's not going nowhere, right? Build the relationship that lasts longer, especially right now in this kind of COVID landscape where everyone thinks the bottom is falling out. You can't get a job. Build relationships.
And learn the business, learn the industry. You got to pay your dues. Sometimes you might have to take a job where you don't get paid, but it's important to know the business, because at the end of the day, as designers, our goal is to make sure that our clients are happy. And knowing our clients' needs. We may all look to have a style, a voice, and all of that, but at the end of the day, if your clients are not happy, you're not going to get referrals. And referrals is really the name of the game in this business. So you got to, step away from what's my style, what's my voice, and make sure you are able to address your clients' needs, because that's paramount. You don't want to end the day with a client knowing that you ticked her off because you had this vision in your mind of what you saw, how you saw the space, but it had nothing to do with what the client needed or wanted. So we have to get back to basics and understand that clients are first and foremost in this business.
All right, thank you so much. So we have a question for Everett. Where's your favorite place to travel, and how did traveling inspire you to become a better designer?
So Tokyo, Japan is one of my favorite places to go. There's a design style called wabi sabi, which is finding beauty and imperfection, and it changed my life. Because so often in design, we're in pursuit of perfection, and it's not until you're able to take a pause and understand there's beauty and imperfection also that you get the entire script or picture.
What was that? What did you say it was?
Wabi sabi. So it's WABISABI. Wabi sabi. So it's like instead of the full moon being beautiful, it's the crescent moon.
Yeah.
Instead of fresh flowers, it's dried flowers. Or if you think of an old Japanese tea room, it's that old pot that they've been using for 100 years that it just oozes style and evokes, you know, a feeling. But for me, the Japanese culture, more than any other culture in the world, is one that is in the greatest pursuit of beauty and design. So textiles, color, space. I mean, literally, the Japanese live in closets, and it will blow your mind how beautiful these spaces are. And so it is by far one of the more intriguing places I've been.
All right. Someone asks, what are the first steps of starting your company and landing your first client?
Oof. Perseverance.
Ding, 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 ding. Right. That's it. Right. I think know who you want your client to be. Be very, very, very clear who you want your client to be. Know where they're at, what events they're going to. And I tell people all the time, being a business owner is like constantly looking for a job. And this is how I try to relate to students. You're sending out your resume, you're sending out your cover letter, and you're going to that generic inbox, that info at, as a business owner, right? When I started, I was cold calling. And I remember I reached out to 4 developers a week, right? And I would reach out to them at least 7 different ways in a week's time span. Persistent, relentless. Typically about around the 3rd or 4th time, they were like, yo, who is this chick and what does she want, right? But it's what Everett said. You had to know, research, know who you wanted to work with, and be persistent and steady, consistent. Like, I couldn't be like, I'm gonna sleep in late. No, it was up at this time. Who were my developers? Constantly researching. That was key. A good lawyer.
Knowing who you are.
Yeah. No. Yeah. But
you can't be a Kia and not know who you are, right? And that's really important. And the analogy I'll use for that is if I'm a quarterback and I go to try out for a football team, if I come in insecure about being a quarterback because they want me to be a lineman, right? I'm not going to step up as a quarterback at 6'6" to be a lineman who's 350 pounds and maybe 5'8", right? So you've got to be comfortable with yourself, your business strategy, the direction you want to go in. And mostly it's where we opened up is perseverance. The reason I started there is because you're going to get slapped down. You're going to get a lot of no's. You're going to get, I don't like what you do, or you don't fit. So if you don't have that perseverance, it's going to be a tough road.
Yeah, and I don't know what you like and
yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you so much.
No, I was just going to say, finding your niche, finding what suits you in design. For me, I do mostly residential design. I do some like commercial, but I have found over the years, I prefer picking tile over picking fabric. So you got to know what's best for you. You know what I mean? So that's why I decided, a couple of years ago, I'm going to specialize in kitchen and bath design. That's what I like to do. I love construction. People think I'm crazy, but I love to go into construction site. I like to see a raw space, the studs and the electrical, and then seeing that all come into fruition. But you've got to experience some different avenues of design to figure out what works for you.
All right, thank you. There's a question that says, were there any transformative moments in your education, and can you share that?
Yes. Okay. So I went to an all girls college. I got a technical degree in CAD because that's when CAD was the business. And then I went to a art and design college. So my gen ed was like basic life drawing. So I just transferred. I'm a second careerist, and my teacher, he's like, I want you to draw lines across the paper, up and down the page. So all the students are going across, drawing their lines. And then he comes to me, and I just knew did something great here. And he was like, you're drawing every line twice. You need to learn to trust yourself. And I learned right then, don't look at all critiques as criticism, but really learn how to hear people. And don't let your ego, my young ego wanted to really comfort him, but what he said was so poignant. And I think it applies to design. When you're doing your trace and your Sharpie, make the bold movement, right? Bold, right? Get it? Make the bold movement in your moves and be confident, both literally and figuratively. That was probably one of the best experiences in my art school experience.
MJ. I had one when I was at Berkeley. MJ was my professor, and he always encouraged me a lot. I always felt like I was never good enough, I guess because I was paying too much attention to things that other people were doing. So I chose to enter into an IIDA competition, which was very scary for me because I didn't think that my design style was, I don't know, worthy of winning. But shocking enough, I actually won first place in that. And it was my master research project. And to go back to what Kia and Everett were saying, I made so many contacts that day, just being myself there, taking a leap of faith, jumping out. I got someone recommended me to work for Gensler. This is a person I still speak to daily. We've just kept in great contact. She has great design sense and style as well. So she kind of helped give me that push to say like, hey, I can do this. I am good enough and I am going to put my best foot forward and I'm going to go out there and do it. So I would suggest any students, even if you think you're not going to do it or you're not going to win, enter anyway, right? And maybe you won't win, but maybe you will, or you're just going to gain some great contacts along the way.
Just do it for the experience.
Experience, right.
And I mean, that's actually a good thing for those of you that are looking
Anyone
for
else have
jobs.
anything
You don't know what to do with yourself. Do a competition.
All right, someone else asks, have you ever interviewed for a job and didn't get it and felt like it was because the color of your skin? And how do you deal with that?
Ooh.
Hannah, I'm gonna say no. Not because it was the color of my skin, maybe because it just wasn't the right fit. And how I felt after that was gratitude, because I think it was either Sky. I think it was Sky who said her mother always told her, "What's for you is for you," right? And you don't want to work for a company that is going to not give you a job because of the color of your skin. So get over it with gratitude. Not to that sounded a little harsh, but in the end, but yeah, be glad, be thankful.
It's also, I think, hard to determine, you know, when you're in those circumstances. If you've given a presentation your best and you don't get the job, you don't necessarily know if it's because you bid higher than the other person or you just didn't speak the language of that person. So I wouldn't really get caught up in that. You're gonna have to present enough times and be rejected enough times to really solidify your business. So just be prepared. You're not getting every job.
Yeah.
And there'll be many, many, many other reasons other than the color of your skin for not getting that job.
Brandon, you were going to say something before?
Yeah, since I kind of like being in interviews, regardless if I get the job or not, because I more often than not, I surprise people because on paper they'll see that I live in Irvington. If you Google it, it's the ghetto, like I said before. But even my name, Brandon Balcom, is not a typical Black person name. And a lot of times when people see me, like I'm 6'5", so a lot of times people look at my height. But then when they start to talk to me, they see like, oh, I'm not the typical person that I perceive coming from his area, or I had him all wrong. And for the most part, even if I don't get a job, I feel like the person that is interviewing me get a better perspective of me and basically like me for the person of who I am. And like Kia said, is more than likely if you don't get the job, it's not the right fit. That don't mean like it's a negative thing. That just means like that, you know, as far as like what they're looking for, maybe like they just need to move on to somebody else. So it's not a bad thing. But at the end of the day, I always like surprising people of who I am and just being who I am. And that speaks out a lot. And I guess in some ways, some people probably wish they could make a position for me just so I can be there and be in their company.
All right, then.
I think there was one other question from Emily. Are there any organizations or companies you think need more recognition for the work they do or the message they spread?
Black Artists and Designer Guild. If you guys aren't familiar with that, Melanie B, she founded it maybe, I think 3 years ago.
1 year ago. 1 year ago.
Just,
yeah, I'm a founding member.
Yes.
First to give money, so I know.
And this is the thing. I think any organization that, you know, NOMA, National Association of Minority Architects, Black Interior Designer Network, Room to Rebloom, which is my nonprofit for domestic violence survivors. I think
that plug, girl.
I think those are all outlets, and I think this is what I love about Black Artists and Designer Guild. It's not just about interiors; it's about art, textiles, furniture, making, ceramic. It's very cohesive to the overall creative experience. And you know, people like, oh well, I'm a member, and people, why would you join? You don't do residential. It's not about what market segment you do. It's about knowing who the people who are in the creative landscape doing amazing things, and it has a rich and diverse craft of this.
Right. And we promote each other.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, you know, I just did a presentation to Room and Board for the makers. So I'm not a maker, I'm an interior designer, but we were short on time. Rather than going to the makers and having them put together lookbooks, I just did it and presented it.
All right, I think we're going to wrap up, but the way that I wanted to wrap up was to give each panelist one chance to say something directly towards the students. Like, so if you could have one bit of advice that you would like to give to our students, what would it be?
Well, I guess I could start with one of my favorite quotes by Arthur Ashe. He simply says, start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. So get busy.
I'll piggyback on that using my favorite design-related quote. Creativity is intelligence having fun. That's Albert Einstein. And so I'll say, have fun, use your creativity, but be smart about it. You know, use your brain, because that's most of the times that's what clients are hiring you for. I say most of them, that's what they are hiring you for what's between your ears, your intelligence. You know, not just your design aesthetic, but your ability to create what they need, whatever that may be.
I think I'm going to go old school and don't judge a book by its cover. Make sure you are confident and choose to speak to every person you come in contact with, whether you think that they're better than you or you're better than them. We're all here equally, so don't pass judgment.
I think I want to say don't be afraid to be an overachiever, because I feel like there are some times where as a student you might feel like, damn, did I do too much? But honestly, you're learning, you can never really do too much. So don't be afraid to be an overachiever.
And I'll just say, don't be afraid to be who you are. Basically, we're in a field of study, or we're in a field of a profession where you are allowed to be who you are. This is exactly what you need to do in order to reach a higher level, is just to be who you are. So we should be thankful and grateful that, you know, we are designers and we can express who we are through our work. And not a lot of people can do that. Not a lot of people can say they have a job where they can do that. And you just and last thing, just always like continue just to brand yourself. You're a brand also, not just like what you do, but you as a person is a brand, and who you are is a part of that brand, and how you you know, just put yourself out there.
And I would say just lead with passion and don't get discouraged along the way, because it's not easy, but don't give up on yourself.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody.
Yeah, what about Kean? Wait, first of all, I was waiting for Sky to go, because Sky didn't go.
Sky went.
You what I said too.
Okay.
You were shaking your head, Kia. So I saw
that. But this is the perfect ending. You know it. Come on, Kia.
Oh, design equity is a standard.
Yes. Bam.
On brand.
All right. So I think this was a pretty successful event. I want to thank all the panelists for taking the time to be here in the first place, and for saying everything that they did to say. I think all the advice, all the words that were spoken were really taken to heart, and I appreciate it so much. I hope the students appreciate it as well. I know there's a lot of faculty on here as well, and I also hope this is the beginning. I don't want this to be a one and only, one and done kind of deal. I hope that we can do this again. You know, maybe when the whole COVID thing is over, we can have Kia actually come to New Jersey. Everett's a little bit easier to bring him over, but I think for you guys to actually be able to talk with all the students in person would be even, you know, that's like next level kind of stuff. But thank you to everybody, to all the participants for, you know, supporting this and supporting our students and supporting our program. And like I said, this is being recorded, so I'm going to post this as soon as possible. Everybody will get a link to it. And so if you missed anything, or if you just want to go over it again, I believe the chat gets saved as well. So all the stuff that was said on the side over there, you'll get that too. So, I mean, all I can say is thank you to everybody, and I hope that this is the beginning of a really good thing.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks, MJ.
Look forward to it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Stay safe.
Bye.
You too.
How do I get out of here? All right, bye guys.
Hey, if there's any students left present, I want you to check out this group called Proud Living. They are local to Kean. And if anybody wants to make a connection with them, they are kind of like what
a little bit like what Kia's doing in the DC area. They're doing in our area, Newark, Patterson. They have the same philosophy. And I happen to know the owner. So of this company, it's a real estate development, but they transform burnt out apartments into places that people can be proud to live. And that's why you could check out their philosophy. I just noticed that they give a scholarship to Bloomfield College. Ha! They're definitely giving one to us. So there's no way I'm going to let that happen. This is a very close family member. There's no way he's not giving us a scholarship. How could he do that without telling me? So anybody want to connect with him or connect with Proud Living, and not for a job, not for an internship, just to do what Kia said to do, and that is to create relationships. So you could email me, you know where to find me, and I'll see if I can hook you up. It's worth just interviewing people there. It's worth just to say hello. It's worth to say, hey, what are you doing? Could I learn more about your company? And that's all you have to do. Relationships, relationships, relationships. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Good night.
Night, Rose.
Good night.